Welcome back to the second episode of the Sussex Live Music Society podcast. We've got a very exciting episode for you today. Joe isn't with us today, so we thought I'd get a little bit crowded with him in here. So we have Connor, who is an ex-society member. He has now graduated and is still likes to hang around with us for some reason. Don't know why. And a very, very talented musician, has a few solo albums out on Spotify and singles, and also part of INDIGO Riot. And then we have Oskar, who is a Sussex Live Music Society committee member, who is also an independent music artist with albums out on Spotify too. And as you can guess, we're going to be talking about some music production today. So I wanted to start off the podcast with having Georgina, Oskar, and Connor all talk about their experiences in music, how you started. Was it your family that got you into it and brought you lessons from an early age, or was it sort of self-discovered? And then how you sort of evolved as a musician and really got into the sort of professional music production side of things.
Nice.
Cool. Oskar?
All right. Who's gonna start?
I can go first. So I really loved musical theatre as a kid, so that's what kind of got me into the music side of things. And then I wrote my first song when I was 11, and it was really, really bad. I still remember it. It's quite bad. But yeah, that kind of started things off. And then I started playing saxophone, actually. That was the first proper instrument I played, but then I was like, I can't sing and play saxophone at the same time. It's a bit of an issue. So then I just started to teach myself how to play guitar to kind of accompany that. And yeah, since about 13, 14, been quite serious about it. And then before I came to Sussex, I did a songwriting diploma at London, which is a music university. That's where it kind of started. I was learning more about production because we had production lessons and things like that. And I'm by no means master Oskar and Connor, much better producers than me, but I'm the example of you can do little bits on Logic and things like that to make demos, and just learning from people. I released an EP this year, and my friend who was producing that, I learned a lot from him. So yeah, that's kind of me.
Sick.
Very nice.
What about yourself, Oskar?
Well, for me, I guess music's always been around. My dad plays the piano and then plays accordion and just all kinds of stuff. So it's always been there, but I've never really had a formal experience with it until now. But yeah, as a kid, I didn't really want to do music because it was just never seemed like a plausible thing. So I got into film at first, actually, which was kind of my bridge into music in the first place. Just movie soundtracks and stuff like that. But yeah, then I lived in Beijing for a bit, and the first song that I ever wrote that I released was a song in Chinese, actually, called 我爱汉堡包, which translates to I love hamburgers, and that's what it was about.
Nice.
And since then in my career just took off, basically. No, but I decided to study music at uni, which is what I'm doing now, and that's when I sort of just decided that's kind of what I want to do.
What is the formal name of your degree?
It's music tech. It's a bachelor degree.
So it really is focusing on the production and back end side of things.
Exactly, yeah, because I've never really had any experience with the theory side of music, so I'm self-taught for every instrument I play, or my dad helped me out with guitar or piano, but I've never got the background that you would in a music school, which is why it's music tech is more well suited for me, I'd say.
Just to cover all bases here, what instruments do you play?
I play piano, guitar, and I'm learning the bass currently, and I sing.
Oh, that's four. Oh, I missed this out actually. That bass is actually for INDIGO, right? Is it not?
Yes, exactly.
That is correct.
I forgot about this switch up. So I think we mentioned it on the last podcast, but a very sort of core part to our society is that we have a really cool band that are sort of very close to us due to everyone in the band have been on the society. committee and are all part of the same friendship group called Indigo Riot. And I always struggle to pin a genre on you guys, but it's cool. That's what it is. And recently, Oskar here has joined and taken over from one of the front men as the bassist.
Yes.
And I'm very excited to see what comes from Indigo Riot from this.
Yeah, you should be. It's going to be great. It's coming soon.
Nice. I'm hyped. I'm very hyped. And that's a good transition into Connor here. So do you want to give us a little rundown on, because you seem very, very competent. Like I've seen you perform God knows how many times now, and whenever you're on stage, it's not like, oh, on stage, like that slight little sweat to you or anything like that. It's you walk on there cool as the breeze and smash it every time.
Oh, that's really kind of you to say, Jamie. Yeah, I guess it was an early start for me in music, really, because I've got quite a musical family anyway, all around. Whether it's like actually like singing or playing instruments, playing in bands or dancers. Like everyone seemed to have a relationship with music in my family. And on my dad as well used to play a lot of Queen to me in the car, so I think that was kind of like a marriage of two things that came together, and I just absolutely fell in love with music. I like singing, but then Green Day's American Idiot came out, and all I wanted to do was play the guitar and write my own songs.
Mm.
I think that was where it started, and then ever since then, I played the electric guitar. I think I started when I was 7, and then got into a band as soon as I could. Played some shows and started to make my own stuff. I think production side of things was the number one priority for me ever since I was probably about 13, because I was writing songs, but I kind of didn't have any way to get them out, or like I'd be sitting there playing songs on my acoustic guitar and singing, and I'd be like hearing other things that I wanted to add to it. So I always kind of wanted to be a songwriter and producer, and that's what really gets me going in music, really. And now, yeah, I work on the most fun I've ever had in music, which is for Indigo Riot, because like you say, you try not to pin a genre to us, and that's we don't want to have a genre pinned on us either. We want to make music that we want to make, and not really be pigeonholed. And I think that's kind of a creative freedom that I've never felt before in any other project. So that's where I'm at now.
For to really talk about everything here, we know that you've got a solo album that you released when you were talking about other projects. What was it like working on? Was that your first like professional sort of experience at really trying to sort of put your work out there?
What with my solo stuff,
Yeah, with Cessidor?
Celador, yeah.
Cessidor.
Um, yeah, it was kind of weird because I used to be in a band when I was at school, and we released some songs, but it kind of never really went anywhere. And then I came off to uni, and for probably about, I think it wasn't until the end of my second year that I even thought about releasing anything by myself. Like I was always trying to find a band, never managed to find one, and I thought I might as well just do it, my own way. And my musical kind of influences were changing so much at that point. I was really, really getting into hip hop. This is when Kendrick Lamar was just bringing out Damn. And then I got into kind of like more drum and bassy elements as well. And then just trying to incorporate all of that into my kind of typical music taste, which was more rooted in rock. And yeah, that was kind of like the basis of it, really. And it was really fun to just produce because you just be as mad as you want.
I like that. I really like that. And one thing that you were saying about Indigo Riot and not wanting to pin a genre on it is that I think that's how all music should be. Like you shouldn't be like, oh, I'm a pop group, I've got to make this, or oh, I'm a metal group, I've got to make this, and just using music as an expression of yourself or the people that you're making music with, and then as long as it's sort of consistent with what you believe in, it will resonate with somebody somewhere in one way or another. I feel like that kind of gets lost when you start trying to change your music to fit into a genre or to become more palatable for a wider audience.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that essentially, if you're not just doing music for yourself, then you're kind of doing it for the wrong reason, really. I think it has to really come from a true place, and it's a form of art. Art is powerful, and I think if you've got a message, then you need to really push it properly. Don't half-ass it.
I agree. And I think that's one of the really good things about Slim is that there's no like I don't know what the word. There's no like judgment, like oh you're playing songs that aren't popular or you're going the wrong way about this. Just people, especially at the open mics, they get up and they play a cover of a song that they like and that they want to see if they can do justice for, or they play their originals. There's no sort of
Yeah.
toxic.
There's no right or wrong way to do it, really.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and it's not like you get up and you play a pop song and everyone's like music snobs, so they're like, oh, why are you playing a pop song? Like, it's just having a good time and yeah, people playing the music that they like.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's one of the reasons why at first like the society resonated with me so much. It's because like when you're studying music, you do get a lot of personalities that are quite elitist about music. But with Slim, it's like there's people just allow each other to experience like different types of music together, which is I mean really the great thing about music and live music, right?
Yeah, for sure. I don't remember
Absolutely.
a time when somebody's performed at Slim and there's been like an awkward silence or like any hostile feelings. It's always like the most wholesome. You have like I remember playing "Fly Me to the Moon" and my phone died halfway through the song and I lost my tab and I was like, bollocks. And I was like, well, that's the end of that song. And everyone like went ballistic and like was cheering and clapping and everything, just because like everyone's so supportive. It really is a really nice feeling to be part of something like that.
Mm.
So yeah, come along to the next
I
Slim
think
open mic in 2023.
yeah, it's gonna be a while away.
Sorry, Connor, you were saying?
Yeah, no, I think it's just like with the state of live music, and especially when things go back to normal, with less and less people going to see bands and stuff like that. I think everyone just appreciates how great it is to have people that still want to come down and get involved in those sorts of things. So like everyone's really rooting for whoever's on stage at one of the Slim events, and it's the best. It's like the best thing to see.
I agree.
And also, I think like a lot of people know what it feels like to be up on stage and you just like forget the lyrics or like you mess up. So nobody wants you to like feel bad about doing that, and it's not a bad thing. You just like keep going. So that's also why I think it's so great.
Yeah, absolutely.
No one comes along to Northfield Bar to see like someone do a pitch perfect rendition of like AJ Tracy on the guitar or something. Like everyone's there for just a good time and see what comes out.
I don't know.
Anyway,
Pete could do a pretty perfect version.
Pete could. I miss him dearly. People that don't know, Pete's a committee advisor this year. He's done his placement year, and he organised a lot of the big Slim events that we had last year, which were some of the highlights for a lot of people involved in the society. So when he comes back for third year, it's going to be a truly exciting time.
Yeah, 100%.
Anyway, to get back to the music production side of things, because I feel like we got a little bit off base there. For both, maybe point this more at Oskar and Connor. If you were going to give advice to somebody who's just, say, okay, let's give you a situation. Someone's picked up a guitar, they've played for 4 years, they've written a few of their own songs, they're comfortable performing on stage, they've never recorded one of their own songs because they don't know how, maybe like the occasional cover on their iPhone sort of thing, but they want to really start breaking through into getting their songs down pat, maybe adding a few more instrumentals, whether it be like a couple keys or a drum pad or something like that, and they really want to just take it to the next level. What would be your advice for someone looking to make that step, Oskar?
So I think for me, like one of the biggest mistakes that I made and still do make all the time is I tend to overcompensate a lot. So I like my philosophy is that you can use any program. You can use like Logic, Audacity, whatever, GarageBand to make your music. But the important thing is to do what's right for your own music, because a lot of production classes online and stuff will tell you to add as many layers as you can and just like layer everything up. with, you know, more vocals, more guitar, whatever. But I think like keeping things stripped back will allow you to become a better producer. So like say you're recording a song with you know, like a basic band set. So like, you know, drums, guitar, vocals, bass. You should try to stick to that for your first few songs because that'll allow you to get those things as good as they can be before you like add a bunch of, you know, fun stuff, which is what a lot of people, including myself, jump to immediately. Like, oh, I want to like have all these micro edits and, you know, create these crazy synth patches as soon as I can. But it's really important to like kind of step back and think like, okay, how can I take what I have and make it sound as good as possible?
Okay.
So that
Yeah,
would be my advice.
that's great advice. Great advice.
Do you have anything more to add to it, Connor?
Not on that specific point. Well, maybe a little bit. I think, yeah, as well. Kind of adds on to it. Just avoiding going down rabbit holes as well, because sometimes you can get so fixated on something that takes up 1 second in the song. I think this is maybe a songwriting point as much as it is a production point. If you're writing straight into the PC, you know what I mean? Like you're writing a song, sat there and recording, and you're taking it like a section at a time. If you get stuck in thinking too much about the way something sounds straight away, or there's a frequency you don't like or something, just like finish the song and then come back later, because the number of drafts that I have in my computer of songs that I've written of like a verse, a chorus, and then like it just gets stuck because the moment's gone that I was, you know, like the feel of it is gone.
Like a
And-
bottleneck almost. You're trying to write the song perfectly and have it recorded perfectly from start to finish, whereas it's better just to get it done and go back and refine it over and over again, rather than just getting stuck and being like, oh, I'm fed up with this, and then drop it.
Yeah, exactly. It's so much easier to go back and record something than it is to try and recapture how you were feeling at the moment that you were writing a song.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, it's just the more logical way to do things, really.
I think also like everybody should know that it's like when it's okay to like finish a song, because I've like most producers I've talked to have said that that's the most difficult part, is finishing the song. But sometimes it's already done. Like most of the time, like you already have a
Yeah.
track. It's just that everybody wants to keep adding, keep perfecting everything. But like it's really important to know like when, you know, it's ready. And I think a big part of that, which would be another big piece of advice, is to like work with people. And I don't mean like work with like session musicians or like studio engineers. I mean literally bring like your brother or something into the room and like show him what you've made, and, you know, let him criticize it, let him critique it, and, you know, do that with whoever, your friends, somebody who doesn't even
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
the music that you make, because once you have a separate set of ears, that'll like open up so much like that you haven't heard about it, because when you've heard something a million times, it just becomes numb, like it becomes like
Yeah,
not at all.
That's very similar.
absolutely would say that's the biggest challenge in music production is not being able to listen to your own stuff from a third person perspective.
Yeah.
What Oskar was saying there reminds me a lot of a technique in computer science called the rubber ducky technique, which is where you take like a stereotypical bath rubber duck and you put it on your desk, and as you're writing code, you explain what you're doing to the duck, because it stops you doing two things. It stops you just doing something for the sake of it and being like, oh, I understand it, like I can't really explain it, but like I'm doing it and I get it, and it stops you writing and doing things that aren't actually right. You're just kind of making excuses and being like, oh, I'll just do that. And also, again, like Oskar was saying, it gives you like a second perspective. It's like, would somebody else understand this? And I think that is really important. And they don't have to be someone that, like, everyone listens to music. Everyone's gonna be able to go, oh, that sounds nice. And if they're, like, a true friend or family member, they won't be like, oh yeah, that's nice when you're playing them like TV Static. They will
I
just be
don't
like,
know,
oh,
man. Sometimes you want someone to come into the room and go, that is the scariest piece of music I've ever heard in my life. That's exactly what you want. If you're writing music for Indigo Riot, that's what you strive for. Every time I bring Callum into my room to listen to a demo I've made, I want him to leave a different person than the one he came into my room as.
Yeah, it's all what you're going for, right?
Oh, I've never been more excited for the next EP. Don't let any of these demos be what you were saying earlier, where you get caught up on it and just leave it to the wayside. I want to hear everything.
I mean, it's almost pretty much done anyway. So
Nice. Good. Georgina, do you have anything to add about
What would you
the
guys? I was just gonna actually like ask Oscar and Connor, what would you say to people who are like wanting to start out in terms of like equipment? Because I know lots of people see that as a barrier, like, oh, I need this equipment and I need that equipment, kind of thing. So I mean, I yeah. So what would you guys say to that?
I mean,
I'd probably say, oh, you go, Oscar.
sorry. No, yeah, I'll just go quickly. I think like it all depends on what you're doing. Like you don't need a microphone, you don't need like monitors, you don't need a MIDI keyboard, um, for a lot of stuff. You know, like you can make beats on your computer. Like GarageBand is free on Macs. I recommend having like a MacBook. Is great for me. There's probably ways to do it without, or like other computers work too, but just there's so much free software that you can do so much with. But get whatever you think you need. Basically, there's actually I forget the name of the website. I might find it later, but there's a website that I use a lot to find it out, or I used to use it before I was starting off. Um, yeah, I don't know what it's called, but basically it lets you look up an artist that you like, and it'll show you all the equipment that they use to produce music,
Oh, that's
which
really
is
cool.
super handy, because it just like digs all these things from YouTube videos, and it just tells you like exactly what they use and what they used it for, which is
That's so
basically like,
cool.
yeah, it's how I found out about like all the equipment that I have now.
I'm
Um,
really interested in that, so I will chase you up on that after the
yeah,
podcast and get the
do
link up
that.
for you, and I will include it in the description of this podcast.
Amazing. Yeah.
Connor?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'd probably echo what Oscar said. To be honest with you, I think a lot of people underestimate how powerful kind of the tools they might already have are. For example, if you've got a PC and you've got a microphone, you've got an interface. Like if you record things well, and if you make sure the first kind of signal that you're getting into your PC is good, so setting up all the microphones properly, then you're already halfway there with most of the sounds, and then doing the things in post. Um, doing the things in post, there's, like Oscar said, loads of free stuff you can get, and loads of really cheap places. Like, I mean, quick plug, but there's a website called Plugin Boutique who are really really great for kind of getting really expensive plugins really cheap for you. Would 100% recommend to anyone who's starting out, because it kind of broadens your horizons on like lots of different effects and stuff. But yeah, I mean, the advice that I always kind of go back to is record like there's no mixing and mix like there's no mastering. If you're getting the best sounds you possibly can right from the start, so you're recording well, then everything else you can do is going to be so much easier.
Mm.
I have almost gone the opposite way, and I think this is a cautionary tale to anyone that wants to get into it. So this past Christmas, I got a Scarlett third gen audio interface, and I use PC rather than Mac. So that came with a copy of Ableton Live Lite, and then I also got a MIDI keyboard. And the issues that came with this is that I almost like overwhelmed myself, like Oscar was saying. Like I would jump into Ableton and I'll be like, okay, well if I'm strumming a C chord on my guitar and this guitar, um, in this song, sorry, like songs that I've already written and I've already performed on stage and they sound fine and like people seem to like them. But then all of a sudden I'm like, well, I need to add this drum loop and then I also need to add like these keys over the top. And then what happens if I double down these guitar sounds and then like pitch shift it slightly during this chorus and everything, and very quickly, like music's already such a hard um, sort of skill to learn, like from the get go. Like I'd say like the easiest thing to learn theory on, let's say like the piano, right? But then when you're learning guitar and you've got all these different chords and bar chords and inversions and everything, it's very easy to get lost down a rabbit hole and suddenly be like, oh, there's no point in me trying to learn this because there's so much to learn. And then when you go from that into music production, and then all of a sudden you have access to essentially playing any instrument you want on a MIDI keyboard, and there's so many more layers and ways to get lost, it's very, very easy to get demotivated in what you're doing because there's just so much you can do that it's very hard to pin yourself down to just do one thing.
I think it's really important to try and find that balance, especially when you're starting out, between discipline, like to yourself to kind of stay on track and focus, and then on the other end of the spectrum, just making sure you still experiment. Because when you've got all of these things at your fingertips, like, music's meant to be fun at the end of the day. And if you're hearing something there and you're thinking, oh, this could be really cool to add something, then just make sure you give it a go, because you never know what can happen,
Yeah, a lot of like great music comes from mistakes. Like I believe like in the beginning of Here Comes the Sun by the Beatles, the sound that sounds like a really advanced synth patch or something is literally just like the mixer board like shutting down or something like that. Don't quote me on that. It's something similar to that, but it just shows like, if you're being inventive with it, you can use anything in your music, and it doesn't have to be completely intentional at first.
Yeah, I think there's a whole other podcast you can do there where you go into the discussion, like crossing, what's music and what's just sound. And I think it's really exciting when people innovate with things that you kind of perceive as just being like sound or noise, and then making it musical.
There's a really interesting documentary on Netflix about brain damage and people that have very specific and interesting things that have happened to them as a result of it. And one of them is somebody that they still hear completely fine, but they're not able to differentiate, like tell apart speech, sound, and music. And they were a music producer, so it was really weird that they couldn't tell what music is. And
Wow.
essentially, they sort of dive into that discussion of, well, what is music? Because it's such a vague statement. And 9 times out of 10, it boils down to repetition. And they do a really interesting experiment where they show people a random sound clip, like rain, like a few sort of raindrops hitting your windowsill, and they play it for them once. And it's like, yeah, that's not music. And then they just loop that sound, and they're like, oh my god, yeah, that's this song.
Yeah, there's a few sides to that argument, I feel, because I think the dictionary definition and what a lot of people quote is organized sound is what music is, but then again that doesn't apply to a lot of music and a lot of like the way the music is scored. So yeah, I think it's important to keep your horizons broad, because that can limit people when they first start out.
Absolutely.
I think now is a good time to talk about, as we're talking about what is music, is we have definitely made some music with the Slim live sessions. So the way that we've structured our sort of online presence for Slim at the minute is that once a fortnight we release the podcast, and then alternatingly every other fortnight we release a Slim live session. So in the secondary Slim house in Bevendine, one of the students is a film student. That's Chloe, who's our press secretary, I want to say. And she rented out a very fancy camera and some very big, very hot lights that we crammed into our kitchen. And we made like a little set, and we mic'd everyone up, and we recorded a couple of covers and originals. So as it was the first one, and we like with COVID organising, having people around and everything, it was a little bit awkward. We just did me and Joe. So Joe recorded 3 songs, and I recorded 3 songs. Joe, I believe, did 2 Ben Howard songs and an original, Home and Heart, which everyone loves, is now actually sort of immortalised on YouTube, and we can listen to it whenever we want.
It's the Slim national anthem.
It actually is. Yeah, so that got recorded. I edited that yesterday, very hungover from our most recent social, which was also a huge success. So thank you to everyone who put work in that. And that got uploaded yesterday as of recording this podcast. And we will be releasing those every 2 weeks. So next week it'll be mine, and then we've got to do another session where we record a lot more people. And I know, Connor, you said that you were keen to come and do some. Possibly?
Yeah, I'll be there.
Perfect. We'll be doing it on a weekend, don't worry. And then the freshers that we saw at our most recent event are also quite keen. They performed on our Instagram live open mics, and I'm really, really excited. Like, I was excited about the first ones that we did because, I mean, it's the first one, it's something new, it's exciting, but we learned a lot from doing it, and especially when we got into editing, I really picked apart what I liked about what we did and what I didn't like. The next one's going to be like so much more refined. Like, I'm already really happy with how this first one turned out, but the next one's going to be even more exciting. And I'm really hyped to get multiple people in, if that makes sense. So we could have people doing songs together, or we can have just dedicated ones to certain people, and we're going to try to get the camera up for 2 days, so we can do an entire weekend of filming. And yeah, it's very, very, very exciting. Oscar, would you be interested
Sounds
in doing
very
something like
exciting
this?
indeed.
Oh, yeah, I'd love to do that.
The thing about it is it's almost like an open mic because it's
Yeah.
3 to 4 songs. We ran into like a few issues, like um, so you need a lot of light to film on high-end cameras. So
Mm.
me and Joe were in shirts and jeans and on like a chair that had a rug on it with a heavy guitar in our hands, whilst being mic'd up so you can't really move all that much, with this massive like meter squared sort of reflective silver sheet beaming like extremely hot light onto you. So we might have to get like a fan next time that doesn't make sound, or just keep our door open. But yeah, it's really exciting, and obviously when it gets a little bit hotter and there's not such a risk of rain, we're looking forward to doing some in our garden because our garden's quite I don't know what the word for it is, but it's long and there's very cool stone winding pavements and everything, so we can get some very cool shots of that. Yeah.
Awesome.
We'll get back to the actual sort of live music side of live music, because as good as the podcasts are and the quizzes that we're doing online, fundamentally Slim is about live music, so it'll be very cool to get everyone back involved.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Um, anyway, that was just a bit of an admin to tell people what's going to be going on. But I'm really excited about this. Do you guys want to get into the album discussion?
Ooh.
Yes.
Yes.
Let's do it.
Perfect. Okay, so this week we're discussing Ren, Demos Volume 1, and a little debrief on what this album is. So Ren's an artist from Brighton. He busks here all the time. I don't know how many people on this podcast have seen him live. Me and Joe, the president, saw him live at one of their actual shows. But they busk all the time, and they're almost sort of like a little hidden gem of Brighton, because every time that they busk, they bring in like these massive crowds, and you end up having like 150 people just taking over a street for like a mini street party. And that's Ren, who's part of the Big Push, and they're the ones that busk. But Ren is one of my favorite artists, and he got a record deal with Sony, I think, when he was around 19 or 20 years old, and then he was not misdiagnosed. He was failed to be diagnosed with Lyme's disease. So he was like bedbound, like 23 hours a day for like 2 years, and obviously because he wasn't working, he lost his record deal with Sony. And then he's from Wales, and then when he got like stem cell transplants, I want to say, in like Germany. He like flew over there like every weekend for God knows how long, and then he moved to Brighton, and now he's just like taken off. Like he had a couple sort of viral videos with a guy called Sam Tompkins, who's done songs with like JK and such like that. He's like a sort of male Mariah Carey, and this album is a backlog of all of the songs that he's never released. So like Connor was saying earlier, where you get sort of fed up with a song and you get so nitpicky over one thing, you lose the flow of it, and you just never think like it's done, and you just think, oh, I'm not going to release this because it's not good enough or something like that. Demos was at the start of this lockdown and this quarantine period. He said, I'm going to release a song every Thursday, and it's going to be just like old songs that I never released. Didn't work out because it turns out lockdown's like going to be for over a year sort of thing. And he just went back through his old songs, he polished them off, and then he released them. And he's got 2 of these. So he's got Demos Volume 1 and Demos Volume 2. This one got wrapped up, and it's got some absolute bangers on it. So I'd be curious to see if you guys liked it or disliked it, because I feel like it's kind of Marmite. Georgina,
Yeah.
do you want to kick it off?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, the thing I will say is like, because I've never really listened to any of his stuff before. I've seen some of like the busking videos, But the first thing I thought when I was hearing it, I was like, because obviously I've heard like some of your originals, Jamie. I was like, I could so like clearly see influences, which was nice. Like seeing you with your like own spin on music, like incorporating like music that influences you. So that was really cool. Just first off, and then yeah, I would in a way agree that it's Marmite. Um, I I I could like appreciate what he was doing, and I thought some of his lyrics were really cool. Um, and also it was cool how there was quite I found a mishmash of um musical influences throughout the demos. Like there was some vibes from other countries. Like was he speaking like he's speaking French in one of them?
Yeah,
There were
so
like some
clarity
Latin
on that.
vibes and stuff.
It's a
That
feature,
is
right?
because in the Big Push, the rhythm guitarist for it is a guy called Romain Excises or something. He's very, very, very French. Um, so he just recorded a French song with it. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, so I thought it was cool how it was such like different styles of music in the same album, which in a way kind of reflects the whole idea of him going through unfinished songs and putting them together in one project, which I think is really cool because I know personally I can go through my voice notes and find probably hundreds of just like verses that don't have a chorus or choruses that don't have a verse. So I think it's a really cool release from that aspect.
Yeah.
Connor, what's your spin on it? I'm very. You said earlier that you like you were getting into hip hop, and I don't know. I feel like this might resonate with you, maybe.
Yeah, it was interesting to be honest with you. I think I heard kind of a lot of influence from 21 Pilots for sure. Um, in his kind of like rapping style and its kind of cheery undertones to the sound. And also a band called the King Blues. I don't know if you guys have heard of the King Blues. They were kind
Yeah,
of
I really like them.
yeah. It gave me King Blues vibes as well, which was cool because I like the King Blues. Um, I mean it's not like massively my sort of thing to be honest with you. Um, but I did appreciate like the production was really good, especially for what was meant to be demos.
Mhm.
And a lot of the instruments were really kind of like it was interesting. It wasn't like vapid and soulless and like formulaic entirely. Like it was quite experimental as well, which I appreciated. But yeah, it was fine. It was fine.
Oscar.
Yeah. No, I agree with a lot of that. I like going into it, I saw that it was called demos and I was like thinking, okay, it's gonna be like, quite demo draft quality stuff, but the production like surprised me actually. But I think one thing about it was like the flow and narrative of the album were kind of inhibited by the fact that it was just like a group of demos that were like, cherry picked, I guess, which I didn't actually know until you just said it, but I can definitely hear that, because like listening from front to finish, it does have some like narrative hiccups where it just kind of jumps into the next track, which like for me wasn't ideal, like listening to it throughout. But I think it does have this like very charming, like amateurish energy throughout that just like kind of yeah, it like puts a smile on my face in a way, especially seeing that it's like hearing his like story and everything he's been through and like just the fact that he can be so cheery and reflect that through his music is pretty great. And there were a lot of influences that I really enjoyed. I think a lot of the time he wears his influences on his sleeve a bit much. So like yeah, I agree. Like the 21 Pilots similarities definitely like jumped out at me. Also like Hobo Johnson and stuff like that. But then at the same time, I think there was a self awareness to that. So like in I think the song was Love Music. There was like this little Rage Against the Machine reference where
Oh
he
yeah.
like mentions Zach De La Rocha in a line, and then the song just totally changes into a Rage Against the Machine song, which was like really well executed, I thought, and like the production on it like was pretty sick because like Rage Against the Machine just have really cool production, and I thought that was really well thought out, and it shows that there's a form of like self awareness and sincerity in like the influences in the EP, which I really enjoyed. But yeah, overall, like yeah, I enjoyed the listening experience, but I'm mixed on like the album itself, I guess.
Right. So you mentioned Love Music there. So there's two like sequels, I would say, on this album. So obviously Love Music's called Love Music Part 3, and then there's Money Game Part 2. So to give you a little bit of context on those, he released his first album called Freckled Angels, which was named after his friend that committed suicide when he was sort of, I want to say 18 or 19. And he goes into the album's kind of 50-50 between fun songs that you could tell that he had already written and he just put on the album and dedicated to his friend, and then songs that were like exclusively written for his friend. And Love Music Part 1 and Part 2 were on that album. And Love Music Part 3 sort of continued the trend of, it wasn't a song that was meant to have meaning, that was meant to have sort of any sort of like actual narrative to it. It was literally just, I want to see the funkiest beat I can make. I want to come up with some of the most like harebrained, ridiculous lyrics that I can come up with that still make sense, and puns and metaphors and everything. I just want to throw it at a song as sort of like an almost like mind map. And I think they're some of my favorite ones. And then Money Game Part 2 was, he released just an EP called Money Game, which was very much about sort of politics and how money used to be used as just sort of a way of exchanging goods, and is now sort of the root of sort of corrupting people and causing greed and such. And then Money Game Part 2 was just a remix of that continued on that sort of criticism. And it also has that really nice second verse to it, where it's the whole like she sells seashells, which I really liked. If I give you guys
that was my favourite song from the album, definitely.
Really, I was literally just about to ask, if you've got the album in front of you, would you like to give me a favourite song and a worst song? Do you think we can do
my favorite was definitely the Money Game one, because I found the lyrics were actually really well done. There was a good flow to it, and I think it's really easy these days to sing about stuff like that or make music about that stuff like that, and it just becomes kind of like, I don't know, quite cheap or like cliched. I think it's really hard to execute properly, and I think it was done well there. I'm not gonna choose the worst song though, because I don't know.
It was bad.
I don't know. I feel like that's a bit weird. Yeah.
Okay. We'll just do best. We'll do best. Oscar.
Oof. That's a tough one. For me, it's definitely between Money Game Part 2 and Hold On, actually. I thought Hold On, like, thematically, like, didn't capture me as much, but I just thought the production on that song, like, for a demo track was really, really, like, nice and really tight, despite, like, the chorus sounding a lot like a Beatles song. But yeah, it might go to Money Game, actually, just because, yeah, basically, like, everything that Connor said, like, it manages to, like not be too corny while like still like explaining all these important things like in like a very catchy way. Like it definitely reminded me a lot of like Hamilton, and like a lot of like not just like the flow. Like the flow is very like Lin-Manuel Miranda, but just the way that it's written, it's like I guess like the explanatory kind of writing, and very like expository, almost like you're describing a narrative while it's happening, was like super charming to me. I mean, I love Hamilton, so that was like, yeah.
Oh, we could do a whole other podcast on Hamilton.
Oof.
I would need to watch it to take part, and I feel like I'm going to annoy some people by saying that.
I mean, obviously we're not going to do it, but I just mean the amount of things that you could say about Hamilton and like the writing on that is crazy.
There could be a society about Hamilton.
Georgina, what was your favorite?
I don't just want to say what everyone else has said, but Money Game Part 2 I also really did like. And I mean, I study politics as well, so I find the kind of like what Connor and Oskar was saying about how, you know, you can hear songs and you can be a bit like, oh, here we go again, using the same cliche about like politics and economics and stuff. But I thought like some of the lyrics on there were really witty, and like it had a really good thread running through the whole song. And then I was also going to say, I don't know if it's Dear God or Hold On. I think maybe Hold On. singing in the chorus where it's a bit like raspier. Hold on.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. Um, yeah, I liked that song because it also was just kind of quite different from the rest of the songs on the album. Like it added a different aspect for me, so probably one of those two as well.
Before I say mine, would you agree with me saying that one of the reasons why people do gravitate when they make songs about politics and talking about sort of the same themes that he mentioned in Money Game, would you say that, like Connor said, it was almost cheap in a way? I don't know if that's the right word, but mainly because no matter which side of the fence you fall on for that argument, it's going to be very, very polarizing. So it's going to get some people fired up about that song, and it will get attention one way or another. Like, would you agree that's why, like, when you hear something about that, you kind of are almost like,
Uh,
oh,
I don't think it's cheap to address the issue of politics. I don't think there's any cheap subjects to write about. I think it's about execution, really. I think, if every artist is making political songs, they've got to have a sincere message, because otherwise it just becomes white noise. The whole point is it has to be original. There has to be something about it which rings true that people haven't heard in every other song that they hear on the radio, because otherwise the message just gets lost in this just sea of kind of vapid, like virtual signaling.
Mm.
for sure.
I 100% agree with that. I think the second verse in Money Game is really what made it, because he's actually like got a framed kind of narrative, whereas the first verse it's a bit more rambly, and it's like he's just discussing stuff like, yeah, like we get it, he's like anti-capitalism and stuff, but I think until the second verse, like that's when it really shines because of the way that it's executed.
Fair enough. I think my favorite on it was probably Hold On, honestly.
Mm.
It's that kind of like, I don't know if you could describe it as breakbeaty, but the beat behind it was very snappy and like literally from the first opening. I think it's like the opening chorus. It's just like you're in there and it's stuck in your head. Like the rest of the songs, I mean, I know the lyrics too, and they're catchy in their own way. But Hold On is like I'll catch myself singing it sort of in my own time when I'm not listening to the song. Um, but sort of bonus points like Ocean. I really enjoyed Ocean. I
Mm.
thought the sampling on it was really nice, and it's got Eden Nash on it, and Eden Nash was
Oh,
on one of
her
us. And
voice.
yeah, on what's the song called? Humble. I think he did with Eden Nash, and that's almost like a reggae, like sort of jam rocky, laid back song. And this was very much in the same vein of that, and I really enjoyed it. And some of
Yeah,
the runs that she does in it are absolutely insane.
I thought the piano on that track was really cool,
Yeah,
and really like it sounded like, like some of the little riffs were very like oceany, like just the way that they kind of trilled back and forth.
yeah, for
It
sure.
like fit with the song very nice.
Interesting point when Georgina was saying about how on Hold On it comes through as like a slightly more raspy part to his voice. He has said that um, they're going to be doing an album which is a bit more true to his like busking roots. And if you watch him busking Brian, it's very much like he does a lot of belty songs where he hits these like insane high notes, and then he'll come down and do sort of like lower notes and more raspy things, and he has like this really amazing range. But that's one of the things I actually really dislike about this album is that it's like it's almost overproduced. Like they feel like Connor was saying, they feel like it's a song that's been recorded into um, like Ableton rather than an acoustic song, which I've seen, or like on his electric guitar loop song that he's then transplanted over. Like there's very few of these songs that I feel like he could perform live without a backing track, and they would sound quite as engaging, which I don't know if I'd necessarily like. Would you say that's fair?
Interesting.
Yeah, well, it's definitely something that came to mind when, like, especially because like I just spent some time looking at his YouTube channel and like the videos of him busking. I think I've seen him in town a couple times, just like pass by, and it's just so impressive. And I feel like he showcases that so nicely when he's playing live. Um, just like you said, his range, his guitar playing, it's all there. Like when he's busking. Um, whereas like I guess this album like was trying to be a bit more. I Yeah, I don't know if like I would call it overproduced, because I feel like it was almost stripped back, um, like very like contained, which, but like same as you were saying, like it kind of inhibited it from kind of being as free flowing as his live performances are, because when he's playing live, he like, you know, the guitar is a bit like jangly and like doesn't always play in time, which gives it so much charm. While he still has like this professionalism about him when he's playing, which I think the album wasn't really able to capture in any way.
Yeah, I think just adding on that, it's really interesting because Georgina and I were actually having a conversation the other day about production, and just we met for a coffee. Um, and I was saying to her then, you know, sometimes the takes that you want to include in your final mix are not the ones where you've hit all the notes correctly, or everything's been perfectly in time, because to convey the emotion in a recording, especially, sometimes it really helps to have, you know, a few cracks in the voice, or going flat every here and there, just because it gives it some more emotion.
Sure. I
Yeah,
mean,
And
100%.
have any of you guys seen John Mayer's Instagram live streams when he just sort of rambles with his guitar and talks about his likes and dislikes of sort of current music? Something that he said that
No.
really resonated with me and made a lot of sense is that one of the issues that he runs into nowadays with music that is sort of popular and is striving from the get-go to be popular is that it's mixed, auto-tuned, and written in such a way that it is just all in tune. And he was
mm,
playing on his guitar, and he was playing a riff, and he was like, "Oh, if you play this riff from this song, you slide down to this note, and then you bend it up a full step, and that sounds really nice. But it sounds even better if I take it ever so slightly above that full step, because it sounds like when someone's singing and they're singing emotionally and they slightly go too pitchy. And like
mm,
it's not being pitchy. Like if you want to call it that, you can call it that. Like from like a sort of technical point of view, I guess they are going slightly above the note that's being played underneath it. But that ever so slight push is what conveys that emotion, and it's something that people like Nina Simone did really well, where even though they were going slightly too high or too low, it really, really added to the song. And the song, well, everyone has their opinion, but the song, in my opinion, wouldn't be as good if it didn't sort of carry that emotional weight behind it.
yeah,
Yeah,
I think
I
it's carry on, Oscar.
no, no, you go.
Yeah, I think it's just about adding character to songs, and also just keeping that human aspect, definitely, especially if it's, you know, a song with some vocals or organic instruments in. I think it's, you know, obviously a bit different with things like drum and bass, because that kind of relies on the tightness. But when you're, you know, when you're really trying to get some emotion across, then I think it's important to have kind of some mistakes, just like Oscar said earlier.
I think
Yeah.
also like just making it so it's how you like it. Like if you like it with the crack and how it sounds. Like I remember when I was even uh doing my EP, like I was showing it to certain people and they were saying, "Oh, I feel like it feels like you can't quite hit the note on that part. Like try and sing it stronger." But I was like, I like how that sounds. Like to me that's how I want it to sound, and it goes back to what we were saying earlier about how you should really be making the music for yourself because you're finding it fun and
Mm.
you like it. Because ultimately, you could put this piece of music out and no one likes it, then you think, actually, I don't like it either. But if no one likes it and you really love it, then it doesn't really matter.
Maybe
Oh
you're just
yeah,
picking
I
it to the
mean,
wrong people to listen to.
I tell you now, the new Indigo Riot stuff, for sure, a lot of people aren't going to get it, but it's my favorite music ever that's ever come from anyone, and that's how you should feel about your music. I think you need to be writing the music that you wish you could hear.
Mm,
Yeah.
for sure.
Nice. What were you going to say, Oscar, a minute ago? Sorry, we ended up
Oh no, yeah, no worries.
scrambling.
Yeah, no, it was I don't think that's anything new though. Is music, you know, on the radio, you know, trying to be as sterile as possible and whatever. I think that that's been around for a while. And I also think it kind of has to do with what you want, because like there's so many specific ways to make something sound clean. Like, you know, auto tune, for example. I love auto tune. I think it's a really cool effect because it doesn't necessarily have to mean, you know, like correcting every aspect of a performance. It can just be something that sounds really cool. But then, like, you have to have another edge to it, you know? So, like, something can be really clean. Like, for example, like, everything, you know, in music pretty much is compressed and has compressors on it, which is like, in my opinion, like the auto tune of gain, you know,
Mhm.
Whereas auto-tune is, has to do with pitch. So like, if you have something that's very clean in a song, you should compensate for having something that isn't that, and that it's a bit more rough. I think that's where the balance is kind of reached, you know. So I don't
Yeah,
think it's
absolutely.
any one thing that you can pinpoint,
Yeah, I completely agree.
I think that sums that up quite well. It's a very succinct way of putting it. I like that. Anyway, let's wrap up the album discussion bit and move on to picking our own ones. But before we do you want to give this album a quick sort of like out of 10, and would you recommend it to someone else to give it a listen? I'll start. So I'd give it like a 6.5 to a 7 out of 10. Like it's not my favorite album in the world, but I'm really glad it exists, and I'm glad those songs are out there rather than being sat on a hard drive somewhere forgotten forever. And I would recommend other people listen to it, and that's why I put it forward for this. Oscar?
Yeah, I think I would give it a 6 out of 10, and I would if yeah, oh gosh, if you like this sort of like if you like this sort of music, check it out. If you like this kind of like amateurish, like very charming, like pop rap type stuff, which like definitely a lot of people do, check it out. I would recommend it for sure. It's also a very quick listen, very like short. It's just like a burst of fun
Bite
in 30
size.
minutes. Yeah, bite sized.
Connor?
Yeah, I'd probably give it like a I don't know 5.5 maybe. I pretty much echo what Oscar said, which was yeah, I think it's definitely for some people, but it's not really for me, to be honest with you. And that's no dirt at all on the actual album itself. I think that um, there are quite a lot of people doing a similar sort of music right now, and it's just something that doesn't really connect with me personally. But I do think that it was really well made, really well produced. And he's obviously a really talented guy. Like some of the notes he hits are wicked, and he's got a great flow as well. But yeah, it's just not really my sort of thing, to be honest with you.
Georgina?
Yeah, I'd give it a 6 as well. 'Cause it's not the kind of thing I would put on myself and listen to, but I was actually listening to it whilst I was cooking dinner yesterday. Just gave the kitchen a nice vibe. Yeah, I think I like the production on it and some of the lyrics as well, and I think it's all really thought out, and also just from the aspect of encouraging people to not leave music sitting on your phone and actually trying to do something with it. I think it's definitely a good listen for people.
So right. Well, that wraps up that album. I think that was I enjoyed it. That was quite a. I think I was right with the Marmite. Like, there's definitely songs on it that people like, definitely ones that people don't like as much. Um, and I'm glad it spurred some discussion. So it's time for us to pick our album that will be discussed next week. So next week on the podcast, it'll probably be myself, Georgina, maybe Joe will make a return, or Joe will be replacing Georgina, we never know. And we'll be bringing some more, probably some more committee members into the podcast to chat about. We haven't discussed the theme for next week's podcast, but I'm sure we'll have something underway. So we have Knife Man by AJJ, which was Oscar's recommendation, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have Visions of Bodies Being Burned by Clippings by Connor. Did I say that right? Is it Clippings?
Clipping.
Clipping, got it.
Yeah.
And then Glory Sound Prep by John Berlin. Yeah?
Yep.
Okay, and we give it a spin.
Very nice.
And the good thing about this
Yeah,
is
I'm very excited to see what you're going to think of that.
Glory Sound Prep. Georgina won out.
Yeah.
My apologies, guys. You're being bested
worries.
on the roll of the dice, but it's just how it goes sometimes.
Well, I recommend both of those albums either way.
Yeah, we'll include
Yeah.
links to all three albums that were recommended in the description of this podcast, as well as the album that we discussed. They're all on Spotify, right, guys?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll just throw the links in the description as well. And then you guys can listen along to them. And if you have any thoughts on the albums that either that we have discussed, we were going to discuss, or we will be discussing, please do send us a message over on our Instagram at Sussex Live Music Society. Is there any sort of plugs that you want to make, guys? I know Connor knows that the Indigo Riot is releasing their EP soon. Oscar, have you got anything up and coming that you're excited about?
Yeah, I probably have some solo music coming out soon. I'm not sure when, but it will be coming out, and I have stuff that I've released this summer as well. So it's under Oscar August on all platforms. That's Oscar with a K. And it's
That'll also
available
be in the
most
description.
places. Cool.
Connor?
Yeah, Indigo Right, I've got a new single out. It's called Weatherland. You can see it on Spotify and all the other music platforms, and it's really, really good. So you should go and listen to it.
I can confirm it is really, really good.
It's amazing.
And if we weren't doing the discussion on a random wheel, we probably would have done an Indigo Riot episode already. And we're only on episode 2, so. Georgina? I know Georgina, for people that don't know, I'll again include this in the description. Georgina released a solo album sort of towards the start of the national UK lockdown. That was incredible and received very well. And I have quite a few of those songs saved to my Spotify playlists, so we'll include those too. Have you got anything up and coming, Georgina, that I don't know about?
Firstly, thank you very much. And well, I'm planning to record a new single with Connor. Actually, don't know when that will come out. Towards the end of the year, probably, maybe the beginning of next year. So yeah, look out for that.
Look at that. Okay, I think that's it from all of us. We are sort of approaching the hour-long mark, and well, I have to edit this, so I don't want to make it 2 hours. So that's a thank you from all you guys for being on the podcast today. Oscar and Connor especially, thank you for making the time and coming out to talk to us about music production and giving us an insight into your sort of musical journey. So thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks so much.
No worries. So that's it from the Sussex Live Music Society podcast. Please do follow us on all social media platforms. That's Instagram is at Sussex Live Music Society. Same goes for our Facebook and our YouTube channel. So please do follow us on all platforms. Don't be afraid to get in touch. We've discussed quite a lot today, so if there's any sort of follow-up that you want from us, want any further links, or really want us to clarify any points that you made, just drop us a line. Probably on Instagram would be our best platform to get to us, or a comment on the YouTube video, and we'll get back to you in a timely manner and try to be as helpful as we possibly can. And that's all from us. Thank you.